He smiled warmly and said, "Your daughter is beautiful." I stared at her, completely confused, and replied, "I don't have a daughter." The woman's face dropped instantly as she whispered, "She's been following you since the park." My heart raced as I slowly turned around and saw a little girl I'd never seen before in my life. Before I could say a word, she stepped forward, grabbed my hand tightly, and looked up at me with tear-filled eyes, asking, "Can we go home now, Mommy?" She looked exactly like my late sister, who had passed away 2 years ago. I stood frozen in the middle of the aisle, my mind spinning. My sister had never mentioned being pregnant. She had kept this innocent child a complete secret from our entire family until that very afternoon. My name is Elena. I'm 25 years old, and for the last 2 years, my world has been completely shrouded in a heavy, suffocating blanket of grief. That was when my older sister, Natalie, was taken from me so suddenly, leaving behind a void in my life that I never truly figured out how to fill. We had been close, or at least I always thought. I spent countless sleepless nights trying to process her loss, completely oblivious to the massive storm that was quietly brewing just beyond my sight. Everything changed on a completely ordinary Thursday afternoon while I was wandering through the crowded aisles of my local neighborhood grocery store. I was mechanically picking out items, lost in my own thoughts, when a middle-aged woman suddenly stepped forward and gently tapped my shoulder. She smiled warmly, gesturing toward the space behind me, and said those exact words recorded in the visual file of YJP3MU998M0 HD JPG. "Your daughter is beautiful." I stared at her, completely confused, my heart skipping a beat as I replied, "I don't have a daughter." The woman's face dropped instantly, a look of sheer panic washing over her features as she whispered, "She's been following you since the park." My blood ran cold. I slowly turned around, and my breath caught in my throat. Standing there was a little girl I'd never seen before, clutching a stuffed bear. But as she looked up, my jaw dropped. She had Natalie's exact emerald green eyes and her unmistakable, gentle smile. My heart was pounding against my ribs like a trapped bird as I knelt down on the cold linoleum floor to look at her. The stranger who had tapped my shoulder watched with wide eyes, completely realizing this was no ordinary family outing. I held out my hands, my fingers trembling slightly, as the little girl took another step forward. The resemblance to Natalie wasn't just a passing coincidence, it was an absolute genetic mirror. Her small, fragile fingers wrapped tightly around mine, her touch warm and desperate. I knew I couldn't cause a scene in the middle of a busy supermarket aisle, so I gently guided her out of the store, toward a quiet bench near the park where the stranger said she had first started trailing me. She sat close to me, her small shoulders shaking as I bought her a juice box and waited for her to stop crying. "What's your name, sweetie?" I asked softly. She swallowed hard, wiping her nose with the back of her sleeve, and whispered, "Maya." Mommy said if anything ever happened, I had to find Elena. She showed me pictures of you every single day. My breath caught in my throat. Maya reached into the collar of her tiny pink sweater and pulled out a small, tarnished brass locket. With a click, she popped it open. Inside was a tiny photograph of Natalie holding a newborn baby, and tucked behind it was a tightly folded, handwritten note. "I'm so glad to have you here, watching from so I can see how far my story has reached." Unfolding that paper, I instantly recognized my sister's neat cursive handwriting, and the very first sentence sent a freezing chill straight through my veins. The note began with an apology that completely broke my heart. Natalie wrote that she had never wanted to keep her pregnancy or her beautiful daughter a secret from me, but she had been forced into absolute secrecy to protect Maya's very life. Before she passed away, Natalie had been trapped in a deeply toxic, volatile relationship with a highly manipulative ex-partner named Marcus. He wasn't just emotionally abusive. He was a dangerous, calculating individual who viewed a child not as a human being, but as absolute financial leverage to extort our family and seize control of Natalie's personal assets. When Natalie realized the true extent of his malicious nature, she knew she had to disappear completely from his radar to keep her baby safe. She quietly went into hiding during her final months, giving birth completely off the grid. To ensure Marcus could never track the child down, Natalie made the ultimate sacrifice, placing Maya in the temporary, protective custody of a fiercely loyal childhood nanny who lived deep in the countryside. Natalie had planned to legally strip Marcus of all parental rights and finally bring Maya home to our family once the legal danger had fully passed. But her sudden, tragic passing left her elaborate plan completely frozen in time, leaving our family entirely in the dark while an innocent little girl remained hidden away from the world for her own protection. Reading my sister's frantic words, the pieces of the puzzle began to shatter my reality. The note explained that the trusted nanny had suddenly fallen severely ill, leaving Maya terrified and desperate. Knowing Marcus was actively sniffing around the nanny's old property, the brave little girl remembered the pictures of me and ran, following my familiar face from the park straight into that grocery store. I knew I couldn't waste a single moment. I wrapped my arms around my newfound niece, walked quickly to my car, and drove straight to my apartment, locking the deadbolts behind us. Maya was finally safe with family, but the peace lasted for less than an hour. A heavy, aggressive knock rattled my front door, making Maya jump back in terror. I looked through the peephole, and my blood turned to pure ice. Standing in the hallway was a man with cold, calculating eyes, Marcus. He had somehow tracked Maya's movements through the nanny's old phone logs and followed the trail straight to my building. When I opened the door just a crack, his face twisted into a smug, threatening grin. He didn't care about the grieving child hiding behind my legs. He openly demanded immediate custody of Maya. It didn't take a genius to realize his true motivation. He had found out about Natalie's massive, remaining life insurance trust, and he was determined to use this innocent little girl as his personal ticket to a multi-million-dollar payout. I looked Marcus straight in the eyes, slammed the door right in his face, and locked it securely before he could even attempt to force his way inside. I was absolutely terrified, but looking down at Maya's tear-filled eyes, a sudden wave of fierce, protective rage washed away all of my fear. There was absolutely no way I was going to hand over my late sister's secret child to a manipulative predator who only viewed her as a corporate dollar sign. The very next morning, I walked straight into the offices of the sharpest family law attorney in the city, laying out Natalie's handwritten letter on the desk and demanding emergency legal guardianship. Marcus was already moving fast, filing counter-petitions, and bringing in an aggressive legal team to paint me as an unstable, unfit guardian who was hiding a stolen child. But what he didn't realize was that Natalie had been 10 steps ahead of him, even in her final weeks. Tucked inside the secret lining of the brass locket Maya wore, my attorney discovered a tiny, encrypted digital flash drive. When we unlocked the files, we found a literal goldmine of forensic evidence. Natalie had meticulously saved years of old, threatening text logs, fraudulent bank transfers, and official police reports she had quietly filed against Marcus. It was the ultimate digital defense shield, completely exposing his abusive past and his long history of systemic financial deception. Our legal team constructed an airtight, ironclad case, preparing to unleash the absolute truth on the predator in front of a judge. The family court hearing was the most intense day of my entire life. Marcus sat on the opposite side of the courtroom, wearing an expensive, tailored suit designed to project the false image of a grieving, responsible father. His aggressive legal team immediately went on the attack, launching a vicious smear campaign against me, claiming that I was an unstable guardian who was deliberately alienating a child from her biological parent. I sat at the defense table, my hands tightly clenched under the wood, listening to their absolute lies. But as I looked at the judge, I knew that emotional theatrics meant absolutely nothing compared to the power of irrefutable physical evidence. When it was our turn to speak, my attorney calmly stood up and presented the handwritten letter along with the forensic data retrieved from the secret locket. We played the recorded phone lines and displayed the chronological police reports detailing Marcus's pattern of harassment and financial extortion. The atmosphere in the courtroom completely shifted, dropping 10 degrees as the judge reviewed the overwhelming evidence. Marcus's confident facade began to crack, his face turning pale as his own lawyers looked at him in utter shock, completely realizing they had been representing a fraud. The judge didn't hesitate for a single second. She delivered a blistering verbal takedown of Marcus, officially denying him all parental rights and completely barring him from ever contacting our family again. Permanent legal custody was formally granted to me. The system had worked flawlessly, completely vindicating my sister's sacrifice and ensuring that her beautiful daughter would be safe forever. I looked down at Maya as the judge signed the final adoption decree, her small hand resting safely in mine. I wasn't just her aunt anymore. I was her protector, her legal guardian, and her mother in every way that truly mattered. We packed up our things and moved away to a quiet, peaceful coastal town, leaving the shadows of Marcus and the painful past completely behind us. In our new home, we keep Natalie's beautiful memory alive every single day, filling the rooms with laughter, painting, and the unconditional love she fought so hard to secure for her secret child. What would you have done if a secret child held your hand and called your family isn't defined by the secrets we keep, but by the fierce loyalty we show when the truth finally comes to light? I'm leaving 2 other unbelievable stories that will definitely surprise you. Thank you for watching until the